I'm happy with it. You don't like the
Noel doesn't have to look at himself. I have to look at Noel.
Wait, what do you want him to do?
All the people on the planet who work wearable puppets want to know what Noel looks like. God
I'll
dang
just
it!
do this. I'll just do this the entire time. Oh.
Well, yeah, I think you should do that the whole time. If you wanna be in the know about how we put together our little show, if you like to hear the puppeteers and play the characters that you cheer, so join us as we go below the frame. Welcome to Below the Frame. I'm Matt Vogel. A long time ago, I remember Carol Spinney talking about the kind of puppet that Big Bird is. And some people would call Big Bird a costume. Some people would call Big Bird a suit. But Carol did not. Carol, to my memory, called Big Bird a puppet that you wear. And I don't know if Carol made that up. I don't really care. I loved it, and that's what I call Big Bird. He is a puppet that you wear. So today, I thought it would be fun to talk to a couple of other performers who know what it's like to be inside a puppet that you wear. So Noel MacNeal and Martin P. Robinson, please welcome to Below the Frame. Hello.
Hey.
How are you both?
We're good.
Yeah.
We had an earthquake today. Did you hear about that?
I heard about it, but I did not partake.
It was so.
We dated this already.
So now, if you remember when that earthquake was, you'll know when we filmed this.
Did this April 5th.
Oh, well, now you really know because Noel said.
There you go.
Oh, do you like to try to keep these? It could be anytime, anywhere.
Absolutely, but it's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. This is the editing part that Matt mentioned.
I'm too lazy to edit. I'm just too lazy.
Yeah, I'm sure that none of this will see the light of the day.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I was just thinking about this the other day. We have known each other. I've known you two gentlemen for almost 30 years. Now I know that you've known each other longer. But I have known you for almost 30 years, which is a good old long time. It's crazy. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I've known you both that long.
Marty, what was your first year on Sesame?
81.
81. Okay, so I've known you over 40 years. But my first year was 82.
That's unbelievable.
You were there when I was. Weren't you there when I was there? Aren't you?
I was there in the fall of 1982 onward. So your first year, I wasn't there. But from 82 on, I was. And that's when you were doing Little Shop at night.
Yeah.
And doing Sesame in the morning. So you were like doing Sesame and then in your dressing room, completely exhausted and taking a nap. And then going to Little Shop every night.
Yeah.
So you were like exhausted and jacked like you wouldn't believe. So
and I remember every time I sat down, I fell asleep. And,
yes.
And now that you're doing Little Shop now, you probably do the same thing, right?
Oh, yes. Well, being the swing, I don't do it as often. There was like a year ago, January of 2023. That was when COVID just ravaged the cast. And so it was like Teddy Udane was out. Weston Long was out. Aaron, who does the voice, was out. So Major came in and did the voice. I did the puppeteering. John Hosch came in and did puppeteering. And we were there for like over a week because that was the old COVID regulations where you couldn't come back until like 10 days.
Yeah.
So I was exhausted.
Yeah. So you were doing every show back to back for for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's 8 shows, people. 8 shows. A week.
Well, this is actually a great place to start because in Little Shop, that is a puppet that you wear. Eventually, that is a puppet that you wear.
I don't think about that, but you're absolutely right.
And all three of us have been in Little Shop in some way, shape, and form.
That's right.
We've all done it.
And all three of us have been in Big Bird.
Oh, that was the question I was going to ask you, Marty. I didn't know if you'd ever been in Big Bird.
I was in Big Bird when the guest star on Elmo's game show canceled at the last minute. What's her name?
Right.
I guess she should probably remain unnamed.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, and I was not there
when she canceled. You weren't there, and I mean, it was supposed to be a human, and the whole thing was designed. The whole obstacle course had to be a human. I mean, it couldn't be a puppet. And so they said, Karen came up to my door and said, "Here's the deal. What do you say?" And of course, the answer to that is always
Yeah,
yes.
but I
Yeah.
would say that if somebody did come and ask me if I wanted to get in Snuffy, my answer would be no. I've never been in Snuffy.
Wait
Well,
I've
that
never
all
been in
depends
it.
upon which end you're getting into
Right,
stuff.
right,
You
yeah.
know?
I've never been in Snuffy. I don't think.
Noel, you've spent a
Noel
lot of
has,
time
for sure.
Yes, in the
in
front and the back.
That's right. That's right. So I'm sorry, Matt. It's required
Well,
now.
now I got to get in. At
Yes,
some point,
exactly.
I will do it.
Come next season.
All
That's
right.
it.
Okay.
And then we all have to get into.
Yeah.
We all have to
Yeah,
get into.
Mr. Casting people. Yeah.
I haven't been in Bear, but have you been in Bear, Matt?
I've been in a bear
Yes.
type, a second bear. It was like Carmen did the voice for the bear. Or
It was Bear's girlfriend. So there was a second
Yes.
bear that was dressed up with a Spanish
Yes.
shawl and a little Spanish thing, and her name is Ursa. And she came to visit Bear, and so Matt was inside, and Carmen did the voice.
Interesting.
So, oh yeah, but it's great. It's like it's on Disney Plus, the episode, and To All a Good Night, and she actually comes back again for Bear's birthday. So yeah, so it was
cool.
like it was Bear's special friend who came to visit.
Special friend?
Yeah, special friend. They can't hear you wink
yeah.
on the podcast if they're listening to it. They can't hear you wink, but they can see you wink if they're watching. But I thought what we would do is I thought first we would talk about we'll just kind of start sort of at the beginning and do like a mini version of how you landed the gig of the puppet that you wear. So Noel, tell us what puppet that we're talking about, the puppet that you wear, if people don't know. and then kind of how you got the gig. I mean, they should know if they don't.
Yeah. So it's just basically back in March of 1997, I got a call to do an audition for this show that the Jim Henson Company was producing, and so I went down, and it was at this sort of like pier, and I got into this puppet because it was a game show that they were piloting, and I got into this puppet that was very much supposed to be like an alien host. And I got into the puppet, and I was thinking, this is just like Audrey 2. And I'm sitting inside thinking, why didn't you just get Marty Robinson to do this? It's like, why am I here? It's like, it's obvious who needs to be in this thing. And so I did it, and I left, and I forgot all about it. And then around 4 o'clock that same day, I got another call and saying, no, we want you to come back. And there's this other character we want you to audition for. And they faxed me, yes, kids, faxed me the... If you don't know what it is, Google it. It's the picture of the characters. And it was this bear, and it had like this big face of the moon behind him and all these little critters. I'm like, oh, that looks cute. And gave me the sides. And so I got in the cab because I lived on the Upper East Side at that point. So it took it was like a 20-minute cab ride to Henson. And I'm inside like looking it over. And as soon as I walk in, the executive at that time, Peter Van Roden, came up to me and said, use your own voice. And I was like, what? It's like... Yeah. We're the Muppets. We don't do that. Right. What? It's like, no, do your own voice. And it was because at that time, there was another very large character who had a voice that they wanted to not sound as goofy, and so that parents could sit through. So
Barney. Talking about Barney, right? Barney?
We're not naming names.
No, but if we were, it would be something like Barney.
We'll say Flarney.
Flarney, yes.
That works.
We'll call him Rex because
Sure, that'll be good.
Which is just like code for Barney.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another wink to the camera. And also at that, I also found out that they had heard like all these goofy voices like all day, and it was for this character. It was a bear, so all these voices were just like, "Hi, I'm a big old bear.
Right.
How are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, hi, welcome to the big." It's like, so they were like, "Just use your own voice." And I was like, "Okay." So I got inside the understructure because it wasn't covered with fur; it was just the understructure, and it felt so comfortable. It was ridiculous how comfortable this thing was, and I was like, "Wow, like this would be really cool to do." And then I realized, wait a minute, it is 4:45 on a Friday. they've already picked this person. They're just hedging their bets. So I just said, screw it. I'm just going to have fun. And so I did. I was like running around and I was like talking to camera. And at that time, because I wasn't the dad yet, I had what I called my Uncle Noel mode in my voice. It was just pretty much that mode of like, whatever you want to do when I would visit kids. And then I got to the part in the script when it said like, he smells something and realizes it's the viewer. And so that's when I like did a full circle, sniffing around, and then went to the camera and just jammed the nose all the way in and pulled it out again. I was like, it's you! And just like did it again. And then there was another part where he was talking about water. And yes, that was the in-depth topic of this script, was water. And so there was like a clear glass of water, which I picked up and I like held it in front of the camera and then had it lined up his face behind it so you could like see through the glass. I was just like, because I was just having fun. And I could see through because it was just scrim, so I could just see the big monitor, so I just used that. And then I got out and I said thank you, and I just like completely forgot about it. Just like let it go. And then the following Monday around 6:00, that's when I got the call from Henson saying, "We want you to be Bear." And I was like, "What?" Seriously? Yeah. So, and then that's how I got it.
Wow.
And
the rest is history.
It's history.
And that was a Henson Disney co-production, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that was back. See, this is the other story that a lot of people don't realize was because Jim Henson had made a deal with the Walt Disney Company, and because he and Michael Eisner were friends, and so he thought, and Jim realized that he wasn't going to be around, and thought the best place for his characters to live on would be with the Walt Disney Company. And then unfortunately Jim died. And so the agreement got amended so that the Jim Henson Company would create 3 shows for the Walt Disney Company. The first show was a primetime show called Dinosaurs, which is another Puppet You Wear. There you go. Hey, Bill Beretta. So, and then the second one was another one for ABC Primetime, which was called Alien in the Family. There was a quite telling snort there, man.
I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I remember going to the set and visiting David Rudman, who played the baby character, I feel like.
Bobot.
Yeah. I remember visiting them, and Joey Mazzarino was assisting, and didn't they shoot it in the same set where you then shot Bear in the Big Blue House? Yeah.
Yeah. That studio has been home to Alien in the Family, to Bear in the Big Blue House, to Between the Lions, to Ubi, and now Sesame Street. So then the third show, they would do one more show. And so
wait, did either of you work on Alien in the Family?
No.
No, I did not.
Me neither.
No. And so the third show was due. And so rather than do one for primetime, they decided we'll do one for the new children's division of Disney Channel, which was going to be called like Playhouse Disney. And so they brought in Mitchell Kriegman, who had done Clarissa Explains It All for Nickelodeon. And from what I heard, he was going through the files, seeing like what ideas had been thought of in the past that maybe we could develop. And he found this file about this house and this bear. and the house in the file was sentient. So the house could actually talk. It was like its own character. This is like HR Puffin stuff level at this point.
Another puppet that you wear.
Another puppet you wear. It's all tied together. And so then that's how they did it. So for a while it was the Bear was co-owned by Henson and the Walt Disney Company. So yes.
Yeah. And now if we want to watch Bear in the Big Blue House, we can.
Where? Finally.
Because it's on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Good.
Finally on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Marty, tell us, you play a character called Mr. Snuffleupagus, Snuffy, Big Bird's best friend.
Yes.
How did you how did you get that role? Because that was originally played by Jerry Nelson, right?
Yes. I auditioned, along with hundreds of other people. But I had a background of costume characters and puppetry. I had worked I think the first costume character I worked was probably for Bill Baird, back at
Wow.
the Reynolds Aluminum Theater in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is this big, huge goon that you'd put on, with a helmet on, and then the helmet worked this little head on top of these massive shoulders, and it was a big walk around character that would come out and terrorize the audience mid show.
Perfect.
And so I had been in that, and then I worked for a group called Addison Bill, the Puppet People. I'm actually writing an article about them for the Puppetry Journal now. I just found out just this past weekend that Addis, who was a dear mentor of mine, passed away last September. So I've been just immersing myself in the people that worked for him, and spreading the word, and telling stories. But I did a lot of mall shows for him. That's where I met Anthony Asbury.
Oh.
Was doing mall shows in New Jersey with Addis Williams, and there was always a show in the side of a truck that you do, and then these walk around characters, and one of them was Softy the Snowman, which is this a big snowball that you'd get inside with massive galoshes that you'd put on your feet, and then the head was a rod puppet with triggers that would make
Wow.
the coal eyes move, and it'll twig eyebrows go up and down. So it had levers and of course a mouth, and then you run all around, popping this head off or sucking it down, and it was this big, huge wearable puppet. And he always made lots of characters like this. There was a giant mushroom that we did that Anthony and I traded back and forth with, where you'd get inside this big mushroom, talking mushroom, and then there was a caterpillar, maybe like a 3-foot caterpillar on top of the mushroom, kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And so you'd be working the mushroom would be talking to the caterpillar, and the caterpillar up there with this big, huge, complicated rod puppet that made it do all kinds of things, and then you'd use this little walking stage. There was a tree called Leafy Lou that you'd climb inside this big, huge tree, and he had a big, friendly face, and then a squirrel that would pop out of a knothole in his side, and then one of his branches was holding a nest of birds, which are all animated. You'd pull things and birds would pop around and sing. So it's this whole walk around animated wearable stage where the stage itself talked and then had characters that it could interact with. So kept making these nutty costumes, we would get in. So I had kind of a lot of experience with that stuff. So that by the time that I started kind of committing to puppetry and then auditioned for Muppets, I knew how to lip sync. I started that with Bill Baird. He always had some hand puppets and some rod puppets and some marionettes and the costume characters. He always had every type of puppetry in every show he did. So I had learned, I knew my lip sync pretty well. So by the time I auditioned, there was a big, huge mass audition at the Ansonia Hotel, which was about 300 people. Basically, they called in every person that had ever sent them a picture and resume. And of course, back then, it was an 8x10 picture, stapled with the resume on the back. And that was how you auditioned, as you sent those things in. That was before, that was before answering machines, of course, way before the internet, where you had an answering service that would field your return calls. Anyway, so I got called in on that big, huge audition at the Ansonia, and it was one of those things where they had divided people up into rooms, and there would be 30 people in this room and 20 people in that room and 50 people in that room, and this group is doing the ABCs and the other group is doing some other. And then, Richard Hunt was there, and Kermit Love and Jane and Carolee Wilcox. They were all kind of Frank Kane. Remember Frank Kane?
Oh yeah.
Was helping run all these little busted up workshops. And then at the end of every day, you would get a call to come back the next day or not come back the next day. And I kept getting the calls to come back. And after 5 days, there were only about 25 of us. One of whom was the fabulous Pamela Arciero. And then you broke up into groups of 5 and, created scenes. And that's when Jim actually showed up. And,
Wow.
see the scenes and critique. And then it turned out there was a job they were hiring for, and they started talking about it then. Up until then, it was just kind of, well, this is just a look-see. We would just want to see who's out there.
Right.
And anyway, it turned out that they were casting for Snuffleupagus, which there's certain requirements. And of course, Pam was not in the running for that. She was certainly, good enough, but not tall enough or male enough.
Yeah. Do you know why it was that what was it with Jerry that he didn't want to continue anymore?
Jerry, what I heard was that he had hurt himself. He had hurt his back doing it, and that he, wasn't going to get into it because he had hurt his back. Jerry said, I've heard him talk about it in later years when kind of indicated he was also kind of fed up with it to a certain extent.
Sure.
I'm going with back injury.
Okay. All right.
But so Jerry was doing the voice from the booth for a number of years while Richard Hunt was in the front and Frank Kane was in the back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But of course, do the math. They got to pay 3 people to do Snuffy.
Yeah.
Which,
Yes.
if you know your math at all, and if you were a bean counter on Sesame, realize that it's much cheaper to pay 2 people.
That's right. Yeah.
2 people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can't have the
I'm
back
guessing
end
that
of
they were highly motivated creatively.
You can't
Yes.
have the back end of Snuffy just dragging along with no one in it.
You need 2 people.
At least.
I've done it without a person in the back. One time, there's a poster where Snuffy is peeking through the doors of 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was there for that.
Yeah,
So it was like Snuffy, and that was back when he wasn't seen yet.
That's
but
right.
They wanted him in.
He was just
so he's
peeking
up at the
through the
top of
door.
the stairs, peeking out of the door. So in order to do that, we disconnected him and just walked, which was the freakiest thing to see. The back
gave a lot of
end
people-
was just still hanging and just walking away from the front.
Yeah, a lot of people developed nightmares from that day, seeing Snuffy front half walk away.
Yeah.
But that was the one time. It wouldn't have fit in otherwise.
Wow.
No.
So I was with Peter Baird was amongst the last 5. There were a couple of other puppeteers who I actually do remember their names, but will remain nameless. But Peter was a good friend, and has passed away many years ago, and was a wonderful puppeteer. He actually would have been a good choice. And so there was the audition process for getting in Snuffy, and we started. The first thing they put me in was Sweetums.
Oh.
We've
all 3 been in Sweetums.
Hey!
Yep.
What about the circle of life here? Wow.
Yeah.
Our DNA is spread all over the
That's right.
Oh God! Oh, here's it. Have you all been in the Coca-Cola Bear?
Yes, that was my first job.
We've all been in the Coca-Cola Bear.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is weird.
There are Muppet people out there just making little
we've
lists
all-
now, updating on the
That's
line
right.
as we're talking.
I think of all the characters I've been in, I think Coca-Cola Bear may have been the most difficult. Would you gentlemen agree?
It wasn't easy.
It wasn't
And wasn't comfortable.
comfortable.
Yeah, because it was just it
No.
was still the
Yeah.
prototype. When I used it, and I'm sure it was the same for you guys, it was the prototype. They didn't make a new one until much later, I believe.
I worked. I believe I was the first one in. I think.
Right.
He was when he
Before
was
John? Because
Yeah.
Henson kind of took it over.
way before John.
Would have been
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
you had to be left-handed.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
a lefty puppet.
Mhm.
Remember
Yeah.
that? Because he was
Yes. Have to shake
Yes.
hands.
he was had to shake hands and had to, you can't shake hands with a left hand. That's the
That's
devil's
right.
work right there.
Exactly. For those of you listening, Noel is now rolling his eyes.
This is a perfect segue into how I landed my puppet gig, because actually I had answered an ad before I even moved to New York City that had a picture of Kermit the Frog that said, "Do you measure up to be a Muppet?" And it said, "Are you 6 foot at least? Are you left-handed? Are you blah, 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 blah." Yeah. And so I answered that ad. And I hadn't moved to New York yet, but they said, "When you move to New York, let us know," which was weird. I moved to New York. I let them know. They said, "Okay, great." And however long it was, they said, "We're having this audition. Can you come in and do this?" I didn't even know what it was for when I went in. And I went in and I met that day John Henson, who was playing the Coca-Cola polar bear. And he was so sweet and just very nice. And he put me inside this Coca-Cola polar bear. And he said he was looking for somebody to be his double. Like if he couldn't do it, because he would go to like the Olympics and he would do like the fancy things. And I would be then the guy that would go to the grocery store openings and things like that. And that's kind of what happened. But he was so sweet. And that day, the day that I met him, he said, "Do you want to go to lunch?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'll go to lunch with you, John Henson, of course." And I went to lunch and we talked at lunch. And then at lunch, he said, "Hey, you want to come up to my house for New Year's Eve?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do want to come to your house for New Year's Eve." Absolutely. So shortly after that, we went up to his house for New Year's Eve. And shortly after that, I was doing grocery store openings as the Coca-Cola polar bear. I had told them, I was very upfront. I said, "I am left-handed, but I am a right-handed puppeteer." And they said, "That's fine." And because you're right, you had to have your left hand in the head, and he had these great little his cheeks would move, I believe, and his eyes, he would squint or something. There were some pulleys inside
His eyes
yeah.
would squint. I don't remember
Maybe
the
that was the
cheeks.
same. Maybe it did the two things. Maybe pulling did a smile in his little eyes. I can't remember.
Did you have a camera out one of the
Right out the
nostrils?
nostril. Yeah. And
Yeah.
but I would do that for a little while, and that's what I did until I got a call from Renee Rochelle asking if I could do a Big Bird voice. And of course, I'm an actor, so I said, "Yes, of course I can do a Big Bird voice." And then I went out and I got the Big Bird's greatest hits CD, and I listened to that because it had been years since I'd really watched Sesame Street, and certainly never really thought about doing Big Bird or ever thought I would have the opportunity. But I arrived that day, and this is a story I've told a lot, but I arrived that day at the audition, and there were certain people there that I met for the very first time, including, I believe, Noel MacNeal. I believe you were there. Were you not there? I believe you were there. I think.
I'm going to say I wasn't
you weren't there? Ah, shoot. Okay. I thought you were there. Peter Lintz, Eric Jacobson, maybe Tim Lagasse. And I thought you were there. No, but okay, you weren't there. I will believe your memory over mine. That's for sure.
So these are Matt. These are the people that were auditioning.
Yeah. And it was the first time I'd ever met Carol. And it's the thing where Renee Rochelle said, "Carol Spinney, this is Matt Vogel." And Carol's eyes lit up and he said, "Vogel, your name means bird. This may be the job for you." So, so I thought I had it in right away. But that was the first time I put on Big Bird. And, I mean, I had done the Coca-Cola polar bear, but it was slightly different. I mean, it was all kind of structurally sound. Like you didn't have to hold up anything really like you did with Big Bird. It was such a different thing. And I was a relatively new puppeteer. So it was
what year is this?
It would have been 1995, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. 1994, 5 or 6. And somewhere in there. And after that, I had another kind of a one-on-one with Carol. He took me under his wing. And after, and the rest was history there. But
so you were brought on Sesame originally as the backup
Yes.
heir apparent bird.
Yes, because Carol was 65 years old. He was 65 at that time. So,
Wow.
he was, if he didn't want to do everything. He wanted to travel more, and he wanted to kind of, do less. He didn't want to have to, do the equivalent of going to a supermarket opening.
So all the other things that you worked into with Snuffy. I mean, with Bird being the the kind of the basis.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's kind of
then
how I got in to everything.
And then then all the other puppetry followed from there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I had done puppetry on my own before, and I kind of self-taught. I was taught myself how to use the monitor. And then once I did kind of get in at Sesame Street, I would hang out with Tyler Bunch and Eric and Peter, I think, and we would do a monitor night at Tyler's apartment. And so, but that was my story.
I just remembered when I first got put in the Sweetums costume. It was Rita Marie Peruggi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was like her first day. Was bringing that to the rehearsal studio and putting me in that costume.
Wow. Yeah, that's
and then I went down to Kermit Love's workshop, and that's when I got put into Snuffy the first time.
What was it like going into that puppet for the very first time? What did that feel like?
I remember. Do you guys know Bob Marty?
Yeah.
Bob Marty is the one who put me in.
Okay.
And he's my dear friend and neighbor. He just lives a few miles away from here, and he has young kids too.
Yeah.
So I've known Bob Marty since that day too. I remember the story of Jerry hurting his back. And as soon as I put it on, I said, "Oh, this is how he hurt his back."
It happened.
Yeah. So because why? What was it specifically that you tagged? Oh wait, this is why he hurt himself.
There's a aluminum backpack harness in there, and which is it was a Steadicam harness frame in there, and the shoulder straps, they were all padded nicely, but all the weight was on the shoulders and the back, and there was a really nice waist thing that was taking a little bit of the weight, but not much.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to loosen these straps, and I'm going to really make this waist belt really snug. So I strapped that around my hips and put say 70% of the weight on my legs. And at that point, I could see, tell that my back was going to have a much easier time with it. And I was using the shoulders just to aim him and to manipulate the head, basically. But the weight was all on the legs. And I remember thinking that this is the safe way to work this.
Was anybody in the back, or did they just put you in the front part and that back was hanging?
I know somebody was in the back, but I have no idea who. I was just concentrated. Bob Marty might have gone in the back.
I'm going to say maybe Bob he may have gone in the back.
All the times that he and I have told that story, nobody's ever asked that question. I don't know if it was one of the people in Kermit's workshop. It was down at his place on
Great Jones Street.
On Great Jones, yeah. And just to finish my interminable tale is after I'd been done the stint in Snuffy, that was it. And then I didn't hear anything for a week, a month, a couple of months. And I knew that it was I knew that it was a done deal and that I had not gotten it. And I knew that that Peter Baird was doing the same things, and he had a lot of experience and quite a pedigree, and and these other guys were no slouches either. And so I was done, and then I got a schedule in the mail. And for Sesame, and I called up Marianne Horstmeyer, who was
all
in
these
charge.
Names just popping back in.
I know. And I said, Marianne, I got this schedule in the mail for Sesame Street.
What's
Why
the
would they
deal?
send that to
What's
me?
up?
And of course, the answer was, "Oh, what? Nobody told you that you were hired?"
It sounds like that's a
Uh,
common kind of thing. You kind of happen. You don't
Yeah,
necessarily learn.
Back
Yeah.
yeah,
then, the three of us, I think, have been very
Yes.
conscious because of the way we were treated back then, not to treat the new characters like
Yeah.
it. We are excellent with disseminating information and being very clear about who has the job and who does not
Yeah.
have the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Well, while we're here, Marty, just tell us, because you were kind of getting there with the backpack, and tell us what is inside. When you're inside,
Oh,
how does Snuffy work? What are you doing in there? Oh, some visual.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
demonstration.
So you're standing up. He's standing.
Marty Robin has now gotten up.
Oh,
He's backed up.
he's
He's
using a
holding up a
dog.
dog.
here's some.
There's a dog
Imagine
inside
there's a
Snuffy.
imagine there's a zipper right
Okay.
here,
Yes.
and I climb
Inside
in.
the belly of the dog. Yes. Perfect.
Two of the tiniest puppeteers we've ever seen.
You climb in through the midsection. You step into the left foot, into the right foot, which are clogs, which so you don't need to touch it at all because you can't. Then you get into this strap. You get into this strap. You take the thing around the waist and you buckle it, and then you take the weight. And as soon as you take the weight, you've got the whole thing is there on your body, floating, with a good base. Left hand, again, being left-handed, this is where it good works the mouth just like this. Oh, bird, what are we gonna do now? Oh dear, and it moves. It has lateral movement, and you can push it up when he gets pouty. Your right hand here has a little bar. Eyes left, eyes right. Blink, blink, blink. So that's, and then you set the eyes and go for the snuffle, which is right here, which is a curved stick. So you curve the stick, and the end of the stick, does this, and then you curve it and lift it, and you can get that kind of movement. So the eyes and the snuffle are all worked with the same hand. You just have to kind of artfully go between them so you can't see the
So it's
switch.
very
But
simple.
it's kind of like
Super simple. It sounds
Oh yeah,
really
super
easy.
simple.
God, it
Oh, yeah.
sounds so
when I
hard.
got into it, a couple of weeks ago, and actually I'll be in again this coming Thursday. It's
Ooh.
it's like coming home. It's like putting on your a skin that you're at this point. I'm so comfortable and so happy being inside, even though it's it's heavy and and it's dark. It just feels so good being in there, and my hands just do what they need to do. You don't have to think about anything. I watch the monitor there, and it's just Snuffy being Snuffy, and I'm facilitating. I just think the way he thinks, and then he acts the way he's supposed to act, and it's just. I imagine I don't play the piano, but I imagine 10 fingers on 88 keys, and just feeling the music, and your fingers do what they need to do to express what's in your heart. And that's what we do with our characters.
There is always such when it's a Snuffy day, the mood on the set. Everybody's so excited. Like it's a really special day when Snuffy comes lumbering around the corner. Everybody's got their phone out. They're all videoed. They're all getting videos with him. And everybody goes, "Hey, Snuffy!" It's the coolest and most. It's just such a special day. It's real. I hope you. Can you feel that inside there, Marty, when you're feeling that love? Because it's really cool. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely thing.
Yeah.
As well as the patience you have for all the people who want
It's true.
all of these photos in between scenes.
It's it's an obligation, and it's a joy, and and it's just it's part of the job, but it's just what an incredible job to have people who love your character that much. I mean, and we've all been there with it. You have to be just totally grateful for that kind of love.
Yeah.
when Snuffy came out. And Noel, you weren't there. They played Snuffy's
They
theme,
played a song.
which I
Oh my
hadn't heard
God.
in years.
It's so great. Now, before
Wow.
we move away from Snuffy and go to Bear, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Bryant Young, who's in the back. Now, what is
Yes.
he doing? Because he's done it for many, many, many years. I don't know.
Brian's been doing it longer than I
Longer
have.
than you. Wow.
Bryant was in the back. Yeah, he was one of the guys in the back when Richard was in the front. Kermit Love brought him in. Kermit, he was a dancer. He was an accomplished ballet dancer that had worked with George Balanchine, and Kermit Love met him when he was a Balanchine dancer, and then Kermit kind of brought him in to the costume characters. So Bryant actually has been at Sesame the longest of all of us.
That's
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I just remember like that day, like the most impressive thing, one of the most impressive things I saw was when Snuffy was on a trampoline and you guys had to coordinate jumping up and down on a trampoline. It was just like all of us, like it was like impressive and like Jesus Christ. If anything would have happened right
So
now.
dangerous.
So dangerous.
How many people would we take out?
That was the day that Bryant finally got a monitor for the back and has had one ever since that day. But before that, he was blind.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the way it works, Matt, is that I have most of the weight, but I'm in the strongest position to carry it. I'm standing straight up. He has less weight, but he's hunched over.
Yes.
Is he wearing a harness too, or he's wearing a harness?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was leaning.
So he, even though it's less weight, he's actually the one who's kind of in danger of. And when we did the Don't Eat the Pictures special at the Metropolitan Museum, and the little kid who was the human star of the show was riding Snuffy. Bryant was bent over like this with his hands up there, supporting this child up over his head while we walked. You were there, Noel.
Yeah,
and
it was like just making sure, and it was a very short scene. Like, let's get this,
just the visual,
and like cut and like take the child off.
Wow.
Yeah, and we begged him not to do giddy up, and he did, and we collapsed twice because he was giddy upping, and we couldn't take that kind of pressure at all.
Yeah,
it's much nicer having Prairie Dawn in there, or Elma.
Yes, it is.
We've done that a couple times too.
So we've heard what is inside Snuffy and how you're performing Snuffy. So Noel, tell us about Bear and how you are performing Bear.
Bear, I always say it's the Big Bird technology. So it's the same way Bird works, is that your right arm is up through the neck inside his head, and your left arm is in the left arm. And then there's this little monofilament fish line from the left wrist to this little ring just under the neck, and then down to the right arm or wing. And so it's counterlevered. So whatever the left would do, the right would go up. And then whenever Bear, like for his songs or for like dancing, like the cha-cha, then we would trade out for a shorter one. So this way it would be more exaggerated so that it's more like in sync, like dancing up and down. And so he was the second Big Bird-like character I did. Before that, it was on the show Eureka's Castle, and I did Magellan, and that was similar, where I had my arm up inside Magellan's neck, my hand in him, and then somebody could do the right hand of Magellan, and then someone could do the tail of Magellan. Very often, Marty Lynn Hippen would be that, and also Magellan's little pet, Cooey. But I got a lot of training for doing that from having subbed in for Carol for like the parades, and especially for like Follow That Bird, which was quite an experience, which was great. And the movie still holds up, by the way. If you ever watch Follow That Bird, it still holds up. The whole message of a family is people who love you It's great, and it still holds up, and it's a wonderful little film. So
Did Magellan have feet? Was he ever a?
no, I always wanted him to have feet, but no. But what they did was, he had this, like, I could wear the body, and then they could just pop the neck and head off, and I could rehearse with just my hand up in the air, and then they would just put it on. But I had a little monitor and like the microphone, but all the puppeteers were standing up, and the set was raised up. So I was on these runways that were clamped together, and then had these boards on the sides that I could feel with my feet, so I wouldn't like tumble over and crash on my co-stars. Which, looking back now, was good rehearsal for Bear.
Yeah, same kind of similar kind of thing.
It was the same thing. Yeah, because the whole stage was on this platform. Ironically, it was the platform that was used for Aliens and the Family. They kept it.
Good thinking.
And they threw out that suburban house and built the Big Blue House on top of the same platform that you could just pop holes in the floor out of. And so they would have like the little board so that I could like feel it with my feet. And the house was divided. Like the first floor was on one side, and the second floor was on the other. And we called it Camera Alley. Was in the middle, so like the cameras could go back and forth, following Bear from like room to room whenever he danced. And he was actually in two pieces. Bear was like the bottom half, kind of like almost like big clown pants. This hoop skirt, this big clown pants, and then they would put the top on me, and they would zip it up and like snap it down. So in case of an emergency, there was no way I could possibly get out. So first day, my first wrangler, Christine and I told her, like, let's just practice something really quick. If there was something going to happen, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder and my other hand, his head, on your other shoulder, and you're just going to walk me towards the end of the platform and back. Because this is what would happen in case anything happened.
Yeah.
Did you ever have an emergency exit protocol?
No, we didn't. We didn't. I just made one up for me. It's like,
you had one.
You're on your own. Everybody else can see.
So you could not get out of that puppet without help.
Couldn't go.
Marty, can you get out of Snuffy if you had to? Because they zip you up. If in an emergency,
I could climb out I could climb out the mouth.
I guess you could.
In an emergency.
And then reach back in for Bryant and pull him out.
Again, it's the stuff that nightmares are made of. But I could get out the mouth in emergency.
I feel pretty confident that I could get out of Big Bird. I could take that whole puppet off if I had to.
Right. You just put the wing in
and just pull him off.
Just like pull him off.
Because Big Bird works very similar to Bear, but there's no buttons or snaps or zippers or anything. The puppet is just put over the top of my head. My arm goes up inside the mouth, and if I looked down, I could see the floor a little bit. But it's not like being zippered and snapped inside of your death puppet.
I remember when Brian Meal was doing Barkley the dog in China, in Sesame Goes to China. He was doing a thing where he was crossing a river and had to go on stepping stones across this raging river, and he knew that if he fell into the river, he would die.
Wow.
That he would drown before anyone could get him. So I mean, Brian Meal was quite an athlete, especially back then, and he made sure that he hit every one of those steps. But it was hair raising.
Okay, we're gonna put a pin in it for this episode, and we're gonna pick it up again next episode, where we are gonna talk more about puppets that you wear. So I want to thank Noel MacNeal and Martin P. Robinson for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Below the Frame is a Welcome Matt production produced by me, Matt Vogel. The theme song was written by Stephanie DeBruzzo and myself and performed by my band, The Mighty Weaklings. Thanks to Dave Hulteen at DaveHulteenDesign.com. created our podcast art. You can follow me on Instagram at WelcomeMattV or search Matt Vogel. I post things every now and again, and it'll help you know when new episodes of this podcast, for example, are coming out. If you are sharing podcasts, please let somebody know about this one. And also, if you have a few seconds, just rate and review this one. I'm sure that pleases the podcast gods or something. You can find Below the Frame wherever you get your podcasts, and we are now a video podcast on YouTube, so you can see our faces if that's something that you want to do. Thanks everybody out there for listening. I am Matt Vogel, and we will see you next time when we go Below the Frame.
Go, go, go below the frame.